Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wisconsin Jabronis mock draft. We are sitting here at 9:23 p.m. tonight. Got to get this out before the 4th of July, before this draft begins. We got the slideshow ready for you, so sit back, relax, and let's get ready. First one up this year, once again, is Michael Vandehay. And he is going to be picking Jeremiah Love from the Arizona Cardinals with his first pick this year. So Jeremiah Love, third overall pick in the NFL draft. He had 1,300 rushing yards and 21 rushing touchdowns. Might have been the best running back if he came out last year. Instead, Mikey picked up Ashton Genty and then traded him away. Let's see if he does the same approach this year or if he decides to keep him. So, we really didn't have to change the slides much year over year because Mikey had this pick and the second pick. So don't want to spoil ahead, but Mikey does have that pick as well. My NFL comp is Marvin Harrison Jr. if he was a running back. Reason being because this horrible disaster of a team decided to pick another positional player or another skill player with a top 5 pick. It didn't work out well for them last time. Marvin Harrison Jr. is still trying to get up to speed of the game. Doesn't really have an offensive line. Now they don't even have a quarterback. So we'll see how this goes for Jeremiah Love with no line, no quarterback, no nothing. Probably as well as it went for Marvin Harrison Jr. Feel bad for the guy. They have 3 other running backs on the team that are all starter capable. But player profile. So the way I'm going to be doing the draft this year is I'm going to give my own comp for everyone in the first round, and then the player profiler comp, it's all going to be unedited, is going to be another comparison that playerprofile.com also gives. So it's a little bit of an unbiased opinion because I do have my biases depending on the tape and what I've seen in the past. So player profiler comp is DeMarco Murray. So good player. Really, he's the undisputed 101. So good job, Mikey. Next up, we also have Michael Vandehay drafting once again with the 102. Took Omarion Hampton. Great pick, by the way, Mikey. I like that you did hold on to that guy. With the 102, though, Mikey's going to be taking Carnell Tate. Was at Ohio State. Now he's in Tennessee. He was the 4th overall pick. He had just under 1,000 receiving yards, just under 10 touchdowns last year. He's going to be the undisputed wide receiver 1 for the Titans for the long term. My NFL comp is just Marvin Harrison Jr. He was also the 4th overall pick, and he came from Ohio State. He went to a team with no help. So, the comparables are there, although Carnell Tate did not have the college production like Marvin Harrison Jr. had. So now Mikey with the 101 and the 102 is actually getting really good guys onto a team, both compared to Marvin Harrison in my book. Player profiler comp is actually CeeDee Lamb. So player profiler says a little bit better, although CeeDee Lamb didn't really become CeeDee Lamb until his 3rd or 4th year in the league. So we'll see how Carnell Tate does. Great player. Can't go wrong with any of the top 3 receivers, in my opinion. And Carnell Tate is definitely up there in most people's minds. This is where things get a little hairy in the draft. So Josh is going to be picking up next at 103, and he has the choice between a couple of guys here, but I do think that he's going to go Jordan Tyson, New Orleans wide receiver. So Jordan Tyson was drafted 8th overall. He had an 18.1 breakout age, which is in the 99th percentile. Very good indicator that he'll have great success in the NFL. He was the number 1 wide receiver on my big board. I know Tate, Lemon, and Tyson. They've all kind of been in this tier 1 group, and I think that Tyson and Tate have kind of elevated above Lemon in most people's minds as a 1A group in 1A tier and a 1B tier. So, great pick by Josh here in my mind. I think Tyson's going to be a full-blown stud wide receiver going forward. My NFL comp is he's just a bigger Chris Olave. So, you have Chris Olave on the same team as him. This guy's he's big. And Shuck and Tyson already reports out of camp that they're getting along really nice. So I think it's positive moving forward. Minor issue is that he does have some injury history, so that's kind of why he is falling a little bit in everyone's mind. So does Olave. So, it's a little injury here and there. You know what I'm saying? Player profile comp is Amari Cooper. Also had a little bit of an injury history for a little bit there, but ultimately, great career for Amari Cooper. Great pick by Josh. Can't go wrong with Tyson at 103 here. At the 104, we have Joey picking, and he's going to pick Mekhi Lemon, Philadelphia wide receiver. So this is the guy that they got to replace A.J. Brown, although they'll probably put him more in the slot and Devontae Smith outside. He was drafted 20th overall. He had just under 1,200 yards last year and 11 total TDs, so that was great college production. A lot of people, Steve Smith says, especially he has that dog in him. So, again, the dog factor is there for this man, and that is huge in the NFL. You have to have the dog factor in the NFL to become a great, great wide receiver. My NFL comp is, just any wide receiver slot. I've seen him compared to Amon-Ra, JSN, Mickey Abugwa. Plenty of other slot comparisons have come out of this, and he fits them all. He's a really good player, and I think he can play outside the slot too. My personal opinion. Player profiler has him comp to Greg Jennings. Greg Jennings had a great career, and he already Lemon goes to a team that is already, already really good. They're going to be competing every single year, and as long as they have Hurts, and maybe they'll compete for a Super Bowl if they decide to move on to Cole Payton one day. So Lemon has a great long career ahead of him. Now with the 5th overall pick is Brendan, and he's up, and he's going to be picking Jadarian Price from Seattle running back. So he was actually taken in the first round, 32nd overall. And honestly, this thought just came across my mind. I know that my draft comp, I'm going to skip below. My draft comp is Lamar Miller, but this reminds me of another late round pick that the Seattle Seahawks picked, and Rashad Penny. The guy was supposed to be great. He was a first rounder, late round pick. So I might have to change Lamar Miller to Rashad Penny. Anyways, that was just my mind wandering. He had low usage across the board. He was the backup to Love in college at Notre Dame. So it's really hard to tell if he can be a bell cow here. Seattle doesn't really run bell cow offense. So this is kind of where he's a guy that is going to be taking the Ken Walker role, which is very valuable, but I don't think he's as good as Ken Walker, and that's the big thing. He was first-round capital, but he was just never the guy in college. Who knows if he can take the full workload? I've heard very mixed reviews on him. My personal review is I'm out, but I know for a fact that Brendan is in, along with multiple other people that are drafting here. So there's a lot of people that are in. Player profile comp is Miles Sanders, which Miles Sanders was great on the Eagles. So as long as Seattle can keep rolling and keep pounding that run game, Jadarian Price could very well have a good year. It's to me, I think he's a throw him up, and who knows what happens to him. This is kind of where we get into the tierish break of the draft. So with the 106 at Tanner is a tough decision. You have the top 3 receivers, the 2 running backs that I think are going to go first 5 off the board, and then Tanner has a decision to make. And I think he's going to go with Sadiq here. New York Jets tight end. So the New York Jets have a prime history of doing absolutely nothing with their first round picks. So they decided to surprise everyone here and take Sadiq, who was a great prospect across the board. I was never sold, so I personally don't think he's going to do well here, but a lot of people were. He had a 4.39 40 time, which is unheard of for a tight end. Picked 16th overall, 99th percentile for every combine score. He was athletically off the board, great at Oregon. Never really liked the main guy in Oregon, but you'll see. The downside is, of course, he's a Jet, and the Jets do nothing. They still don't have a quarterback. They can see they have Geno Smith, but who knows what will happen of this quarterback room going forward. I did like what they did in the draft this year and what they have been doing, just gathering picks and picks and picks. And then Cleveland, actually, the two staple NFL franchises. They actually had made some good moves this year, but unfortunately, these are the teams that players go to die. So this is this is a draft full of love the talent, hate the where the landing spot. Where are we going to go? But my NFL comp, this guy reminds me of O.J. Howard. Everyone loved O.J. Howard coming in. O.J. Howard went to Tampa on a pretty good team, just never made it anywhere. So that's kind of where I see that his career going. Player profiler comp says Vernon Davis. Vernon Davis was an athletic freak, had a great career in San Fran. So, again, it's me versus player comp. I'm out. Player comp is in, or player profiler comp is in. So we'll see where it goes. But, 16th overall pick, can't argue with that. And that's why Tanner takes him here. Now, this is where I would consider another tier break here at the 107, because now you kind of have these guys that are first rounders, but you don't really know who to take, and the landing spots aren't great. There's no great combination of them. So, I think the tier break could be here. It could be the pick before, but Mike is on the board again, and he's going to go KC Concepcion. So KC Concepcion is the 24th overall pick. Goes to Cleveland, presumably a wide open receiving room. They have Jerry Jeudy there, and that's about it. They don't really have a QB, though. That's the biggest problem. They're not really a great organization. He had a very young breakout age, which is, again, great to see. My NFL comp is Josh Gordon. No reason whatsoever. Just kind of reminds me of that guy, He's that guy that he's got that aura. He's got the mysteriousness about him. He's got that cool name. Like, what does KC even stand for, Player profile comp is Steph Diggs. So, I think we're both in on him. Now, I did see that Steve Smith, who's a guy that I respect, and, if you haven't seen Steve Smith's analysis on rookie wide receivers going forward, he's a guy that's gotten a lot of people right. He actually has KC Concepcion, at like 8. So this is one where I liked what I saw in him, but I can also respect Steve Smith's opinion. The guy was a great wide receiver, and I'm just a guy that's having a couple beers, doing a mock draft in my kitchen. So who are you going to listen to? He actually had Denzel Boston, who we'll get to later, ahead of him. So who knows? Cleveland thought he was good enough to take in the first round, so we'll see. But Mikey takes KC Concepcion here. 24th overall pick. Eighth pick now, and we have Jonah, who is now picking. He's going to go Denzel Boston. Again, Cleveland wide receiver. I just talked about him in the last slide. This guy was second-round draft capital. He was projected to be like almost first. So, he's just another, Cleveland rookie wide receiver, Steve Smith. So I talked about Steve Smith in the last slide. This is his fourth favorite wide receiver in this class, which I thought, was crazy, but I respect Steve Smith's opinion. My player profile comp is I never trust a wide receiver that wears purple in college, so I'm out. I was out on Quentin Johnson and multiple other guys that wore purple in college. You just can't trust them, in my opinion. It's kind of it is what it is. Player profiler comped him to Dwayne Bowe, who had multiple great years in the NFL with the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll see. I think this duo going forward, though, between KC Concepcion and Denzel Boston, I think that's something that Cleveland wanted for their quarterbacks going forward. They wanted a good wide receiving room, and if one of these guys works out, I think it's a win for Cleveland. Next up at the 109, we have Kyle. Made the playoffs for his first time last year. Everyone giving applause. We're going into our 8th year, but everyone's got to make the playoffs for their first time. Last guy to make the playoffs, but good for you, Kyle. Congratulations. Anyways, you're sitting here at the 109. You're going to be picking Omar Cooper Jr., New York Jets wide receiver. So another first-round wide receiver, 30th overall pick. Con is he's a Jet. Everything I said about Sadiq a couple slides earlier, you can say about Omar Cooper Jr. as well. He should have an immediate role because, the Jets only have Garrett Wilson. Now they had Sadiq, they had Cooper, so they had more weapons for Geno. They had more weapons for Geno in this room. But, they're rookies. They're shaky. You don't know what they're going to do. He was a great wide receiver at Indiana. Again, he has multiple comparisons across the board from what I've seen. A lot of people say that he can only do stuff behind the line of scrimmage. Mendoza only passed to him behind the line of scrimmage, and then everything else is gravy after that. He doesn't have a real route tree is what I've heard, so who knows? To be honest, my NFL comp is Jalen Hyatt. So Jalen Hyatt had kind of the opposite problem. Jalen Hyatt was a great player in a great Tennessee team who just ran straight. Was drafted pretty high. I think he was drafted in the second or third round of the NFL draft. A lot of people were high on him. Went second in the second round in our rookie league. Didn't really do much. So that's kind of what I see Cooper as. I kind of see him as a gadgety guy. But he was drafted in the first round, Jet, and Player Profiler comped him to Calvin Ridley. So, again, it's me versus Player Profiler. I don't believe in him, but Player Profiler thinks he's going to be, this great player who will play into his 30s and have multiple wide receiver 1 years. So that's who Kyle drafts at the 109, Omar Cooper Jr. We're at the 110, and Mike's on the clock. And Mike has told me in the past, you always in your mock draft videos, you always comp my players to, the worst guys imaginable. And you can debate that Marvin Harrison Jr. That I comped 2 of his 3 players he's drafted to didn't turn out too well, but. I have Mike taking Eli Stowers here, Philadelphia tight end at the 110. And guess what? I'm going to say great things about this man because I think Eli Stowers is the steal of the draft, to be honest. And I'm not afraid to say it. I said before the pre-draft process, and, I have Brendan and Tyler and multiple other people to back me up on this, that I think Stowers is a better talent than Sadiq is. Everyone called me crazy for it, but now we'll see how it plays out. He did get a better landing spot than Sadiq, but essentially he was second round draft capital to Philadelphia. My big thing is he was the John Mackey Award winner, on a Vanderbilt last year. So the last 3 winners, you can see here below. Bowers did win it 2 years, so kind of up in the air there, but it was Warren, Bowers, McBride, 3 guys that you could probably say are the top 3 dynasty fantasy tight ends. Maybe Loveland is thrown in there here and there, but these are probably the top 3 dynasty tight ends so far. And I think Eli Stowers is going to join the ranks with them personally. My NFL comp is Corbin Blue. He looks exactly like Corbin Blue, just a 6'4" version of him that plays football, but not basketball. So, we'll see how that turns out. Player Profiler comped him to Mike Gesicki, who was good, but I don't think he's going to be Eli. I don't think Gesicki's Eli Stowers good. So, Mike, this is a guy that I think you got to steal on if you got him at the 110. So, Eli Stowers, 110. So now we're at the 111 in the draft. I'd say the 110 was a tier break, but the 111 is probably another tier break depending on if you want to take a chance or not. Here I have Mikey taking Fernando Mendoza, Las Vegas QB, with the 111 because I think that he is the most for sure thing in this draft in terms of getting an opportunity and actually succeeding. He was a first overall pick. His first QB off the board in the Wisconsin Jabronis League. He was a Heisman and national champion in the same year. I think only Cam Newton and Burrow did that. I think it was 2 separate years that he did that. But since 2010, those are the 3 QBs, and they've all had really long NFL careers. Jameis being the guy that maybe has been the career backup, but he has had great years in the past. So I think Mendoza here is a great pick. He's a safe pick, and he could slot in pretty nicely as Mikey's quarterback too. My NFL comp is Kirk Cousins, or he's just Mikey's twin. He looks exactly like Mikey, so Mikey can take his twin here, and then he can look in the mirror and say, "You're Fernando Mendoza." Player profile comped him to Matt Ryan. So Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan both had great careers. Kirk Cousins is still being written, but they both had great fantasy careers too. So Mikey gets a great pick here great value pick at the end of the first round. This is the last pick of the first round, and I had mentioned there's a tier break here, so hold on to your britches because the second round is the guy being picked here could easily go in the second round. He could easily drop to the third. I mean, really, it's really fluid from here on out. But I think Brendan's going to be taking Jonah Coleman here, Denver running back. He was picked in the 4th round, so he doesn't have great draft capital. But Denver needs running backs. RJ Harvey just had, I think he had a scope done on his knee. They're going to be rolling out J.K. Dobbins, I think, again this year. So he might not have an immediate impact, but I do think in year 2, he will have some sort of role within this offense that should be a very good offense moving forward. Who knows if he's not the same type of player as RJ Harvey. He had 17 touchdowns last year, so he's definitely that touchdown type guy. My NFL comparison is Jamal Williams when he was on the Lions and the Packers even. He was a guy that could just get in the end zone. Didn't have any flashy years, but had some pretty good spike ones. Player profiler actually comps him to David Montgomery. So if he becomes David Montgomery, that's an even better player than Jamal Williams was. So could be a good value pick at the 112 here, but I could definitely see someone not liking him and moving off of him and not being drafted till maybe the mid-second. So we'll see how that goes. All right, fellas, now we are in the second round. So Brennan had the 112 and he now has the 201. So with the 201, he's going to be going with Antonio Williams, wide receiver that went to Washington. He was an early 3rd round pick. He's fast. He had an early breakout age. They're desperately looking for a wide receiver too after they, haven't re-signed Debo. Debo's still looking for a team, I believe. Player profile comp is Jalen McMillan. Washington definitely needs more wide receiver help, and I don't think they had a second rounder this year, so I think this was pretty much their second pick. And so this is much needed help. Mike has the 202, so he's going to be picking Chris Bell here, Miami wide receiver. So he was a late 3rd round pick. He's slow. He has a big body. His player profiler comp is Xavier Legette. But Miami doesn't really have any wide receivers. They picked, I think, 3 or 4 this year. I think I have 3 in this whole entire draft. Rookies that got drafted by Miami. So they're really rolling out with Malik Willis and a bunch of rookie wide receivers. So, I'm kind of comparing this to Tennessee last year. Tennessee had the same strategy. There was one guy in particular, A.O. Manor, who kind of flashed, but that didn't stop them from taking a wide receiver with the 4th overall pick this year, Tennessee that is, to make sure that their quarterback is set up for the future. So could be a good pick, could not. I think the rest of these guys are just dart throws. At the 203, I have Josh taking Malachi Fields, a Giants wide receiver. So Malachi Fields is a guy that better put, he's actually being mocked a lot lower in other drafts. I have him mocked a little bit higher because I like the prospect of Notre Dame. He has 3rd round draft capital. He's big. He's 6'5". He's a red zone target. Malik Neighbors is probably going to start on the pup, so they don't really have anyone to throw to. I think they just re-signed Odell Beckham. Player profiler comped him to Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. So nothing else to really say. I think they just need bodies out in New York and Miami. So that's kind of where this pick comes in. And then with the 204, I have Joey taking Scribbling. So San Francisco wide receiver. He was the first pick in the second round. It was a big surprise for everyone, but San Fran definitely likes him. Again, they need wide receiver help. Ayuk is definitely not on the team anymore. Debo is definitely not on the team anymore. So they're rolling out, Kittle and a bunch of other guys who knows if they're going to turn out. He's fast, and he has good size, and I think that's what they're really looking for. Player profiler comp has him as a Devon Vele, but Vele came out of college at like the age of 27, so I don't like that comparison. Again, I'm trying to give a non-biased comparison by putting player profiler comparison on there, but I like Scribbling as a prospect, to be honest, and I think the Niners got it right, and I think that if Joey makes his pick here, he won't regret it. Now we're at the 205 in the draft. Mike is on the board, and he's going to be taking Katron Allen. So Katron Allen, Washington running back, taken in the 6th round. He had 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns last year for Penn State. His player profiler comp is Rashawn Johnson. The reason I have him this high really is because I'm not going to lie. I was high on Penn State last year. I thought their running backs were going to be, what Love and Price were this year. Quite frankly, I thought that they were going to go way higher in the NFL draft. I thought they were both good prospects. They're here back-to-back on my mock board. So this could be very much biased on my part, I admit. But Washington doesn't really have a great running back room. So I think Katron Allen, definitely he could take the job if he performs well. 206 here, I have Josh taking Nicholas Singleton. Great name, Nicholas. He goes to Tennessee. And he's the other Penn State dual running back that they had last year. He's taken in the 5th round. He's fast and can catch out of the backfield. All he has to compete with is Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. I think Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard, I think they're both contract years for them. So Singleton, both guys are injury prone as well. So Singleton could take the job this year. He could take the job next. Or they could draft our running back next year. But with a mid-5th round pick, I understand. His player profiler comp is Kareem Hunt. I'm going to say I doubt that, but, player profiler, I think my comps are better, to be honest. Gavin, I'm going to shout you out here. I realize that you have the pick now, right now. You have like the 205 and a half, or the 206 and a half, I should say. I didn't fit you into the mock. I'm not going to lie. I forgot. But I'll pause the draft for you, and you'll get to pick your consolation prize winner here. But in the meantime, 207, we're going to have Jonah picking. He's going to be picking Zachariah Branch, Atlanta wide receiver. So Atlanta, another interesting case. They don't really have anyone outside of, Bijan and why can't I think of his name? The guy from USC, Drake London. So Zachariah Branch, they kind of drafted him to be the number 2 to London. 3rd round pick, very fast, 4.35 40. He's small, but he's speedy. Where London is a pretty big size wide receiver, so they're kind of good contrast with each other. Player profile comp has him as Wan'Dale Robinson, and I bet you Atlanta would love a cheaper Wan'Dale Robinson at this point in time. Jonah has the 2.08 right after, and he's going to pick Jeremy Bernard. He's Alabama wide receiver that went to Pittsburgh. He was a 2nd-round pick, so this is one of the higher drafted wide receivers. He's very fast, and his player profiler comp is Brian Hartline. He could be good, but he goes to a team that already has DK. And then a team that has a really old Aaron Rodgers, and who knows after that. So who knows where the production is going after year one. And I don't think it's going to him year one, so he's kind of more of a long-term hold and play, but you got to hope that Pittsburgh gets a QB for that to happen. Rounding out the second round here, we're going to be starting with Kyle at the 209. He's going to be picking Emmett Johnson, went to Kansas City. He's a running back, 5th rounder. Now, Emmett Johnson's he is the one that went to Nebraska. I'm thinking of Keon Black, who went to Indiana. Don't correct me on that. It might be right, it might be wrong, but I believe Emmett Johnson, out of Nebraska, 5th-round pick, had 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns last year. His player profiler comp is Kenneth Gainwell. He goes in there as Kenneth Walker's backup, but honestly, it's a good spot to be in because Kenneth Walker is often hurt. So 210, Ty is going to be picking Damon Claiborne, Minnesota running back. So he was a 6th-round pick. He's fast. He can catch in the backfield. His comp is Nyheim Hines. So something good about Claiborne is he has 2 guys to beat. Aaron Jones, who's old and plays about 5 games a year nowadays, and Jordan Mason, who really is kind of just a guy. So Claiborne definitely has a shot to be the guy here, or at least get some play out of the backfield as a 3rd down back. At the 211 now, Tyler has the last 2 picks in the 2nd round. So the 211, he's going to be taking Chris Bracewell, Carolina wide receiver, 3rd round pick. So great draft capital for a wide receiver. Very fast, and he's fast enough to where his comparison is Chosen or Robbie Anderson, depending on when you started following football. Could have been Chosen Anderson, could have been Robbie, but he had some good years. So if Chris Bracewell can have some good years with Carolina, they need a fast guy. They need a guy that can, they have good slot guy. They have a couple of good big red zone wide receivers, so they could use a guy like this. 212, Tyler's going to be picking Max Clare. He was a 2nd-round draft capital, and honestly, Tyler just loves tight ends. So this is the 3rd tight end off the board in the NFL draft, and so Tyler's going to be picking him. His comp is Austin Hooper. We're at the point of the draft here where I'm not going to lie. I don't know a lot about these guys. No one knows a lot about these guys except for the teams they're on and their mothers. So we're starting out with the 3rd round here. Tanner's going to be taking Ted Hurst, wide receiver that was drafted by Tampa Bay, another guy that was drafted with 3rd-round capital. So you always chase the draft capital late in the rounds. So this is a pretty good pick here by Tanner. Gavin's coming up here with the 302. Mike Washington Jr. is the pick. Las Vegas running back. They just picked Genty with the top 10 pick last year. So this is a guy that's not. He's just going to be a handcuff. So he's a strong 302. Genty is a 3-down running back. There's going to be times in his career where he gets hurt. So Gavin's kind of just banking on him getting hurt earlier on in his career than later. The 303, Josh could be taking Skylar Bell, wide receiver drafted to Buffalo. So Buffalo doesn't really have – they just got DJ Moore, but they don't really have after that anyone that's, I'll say, game-changing. So Josh is going to be taking him. Skylar Bell is fast. He has some burst, and he went to Wisconsin first 3 years. So there's that. There's always the Wisconsin factor in these drafts, boys. 304, Joey's going to be picking. He's going to be picking Ty Simpson, another guy that was drafted in the 1st round this year, top 15 pick to the Rams. He's not going to play. I'm not going to lie. He's not going to play in probably his first 2 years. He was picked to be Stafford's replacement, so he's definitely just a hold. And there's a lot of people that didn't believe in him in this whole entire draft process. I was one of them. He's there's guys that I have on my board that I circle their names and I say, doesn't matter what team they get drafted to, do not pick this guy. Ty Simpson is one of those guys where because he got drafted to the Rams, which have been great under McVay, is a guy that it's hard to ignore the possibilities that that he could have. So good pick by Joey, and that's the pitcher I picked for this slide. Gavin at the 305, he really wanted Ty Simpson, but instead he's going to be getting Carson Beck, Arizona QB. So this is a proven vet QB. He's got experience. He, I think, pretty famously or comically said when asked about what it's like about the national championship week, what it's like in school during that time. And he said, I don't go to school. So I don't know. It was a good moment. But he's got weapons at Arizona, on Arizona. Probably not going to get the starting job right away or ever. He's going to get a chance, but who knows? Not a great guy or not a great player, but he'll get a shot. And then the 306, Brennan's going to be taking Jacoby Lane, Baltimore wide receiver, tall, young, and again, third round pick. Got to chase the draft capital for wide receivers this late in the draft. Starting the back half of the third round here, we're going to have Mike starting off with the 307. He's going to be picking Galen Black, San Francisco running back. He national champion at Indiana, 27 rep bench press, so that's more than me. Very impressive. So he's a very strong fella. 308, Jones going to be taking Bryce Lance, New Orleans wide receiver. So this is the guy I chose the pitcher for, North Dakota State wide receiver. So, go Christian Watson. But he's a guy that was taken fairly high to a team that, needs wide receiving. He could always use more weapons. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and he has some pretty crazy measurables. If I were you, I'd go look him up on Player Profiler. I think you'd be pretty impressed. 309, Kyle's going to be taking Elijah Sard, Baltimore wide receiver, so another Baltimore wide receiver taken up the board, another champion from Indiana, and he has great breakout age. He went to JMU, so he was one of the JMU transfers over to Indiana. One of Sig's main guys that he brought over. Performed really well. 310, Freddie is going to be taking Brennan Thompson, Chargers wide receiver. So this is another interesting prospect because the Chargers do need wide receivers. Right now they have Ladd McConkey and they picked Trey Harris last year. They also have Quentin Johnson, but it's another guy. They lost Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen did pretty well last year. This is the guy they drafted to replace to add to this wide receiver room. 5'9", only 170 pounds, but he has a 4.26 40-yard dash. So he's a fairly impressive fellow when it comes to speed. To me, that kind of plays more as a good special teams guy versus actual wide receiver, but he was drafted as a wide receiver pretty high. So 311, Josh will be taking Caleb Douglas. Here's another Miami wide receiver off the board. He was another third-round pick, so I had a third-round wide receiver, Chris Bell, go in this high second round. This is a guy that was taken the same round as him. He's fast, goes to a team with no wide receiver room. Again, if you want guys that may be able to break out this year, I think taking one of the Miami guys is a pretty good bet. It's a pretty good bet. I think I'd bet that none of them will break out, but it's a good dart throw to have. Now rounding out the 312 here, Tanner's going to be taking Oscar Delp, New Orleans tight end. He has a shot to be good, but I think he's closer to a fullback than a tight end, and that rounds out the third round. Okay, I just recorded a 7-minute video for this slide, and it did not save. So I'm going to go through this a lot quicker, but we're in the fourth round now. It's 10:33 at night. I'm trying to get this out on YouTube tonight. Probably won't, but we'll see. 401, Tanner's going to be taking Justin Jolly, Denver tight end. They need a tight end. Tanner needs a tight end. Tanner needs a lot of pieces, so he picks Justin Jolly here. 402, Joey's going to be taking Eli Randon, New England tight end. New England needs a tight end. Hunter Henry turns 32. Typical spot for a tight end to produce is after 1 to 2 years. So New England took this guy to become Hunter Henry's heir apparent. And then we're going to go 403. Josh is going to be picking another tight end, Tanner Koziel here, Jacksonville tight end. So again, Bretton Strange was picked in the 4th round of this specific Wisconsin Jabronis draft not too long ago, about 3 years ago. So I think he's coming up on his contract year. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think they picked this guy to essentially take another tight end next year. He will learn. They're not going to pay Bretton Strange, and Tanner is going to take the spot. 404, Joey's going to be picking Adam Randall, Baltimore running back. If Derrick Henry goes down, there's a lot of guys that are going to be taking a committee spot, and I think he's going to be one of them. 405, Brent's going to be taking Xavier Thomas. LSU wide receiver taken in the 3rd round to Chicago. So the thing about this is that LSU wide receivers, especially taking the top 3 rounds, are historically pretty good. Xavier Thomas hasn't had a year over 500 yards in the NFL, so take this with a grain of salt. They do need a 3rd wide receiver after they got rid of DJ Moore. So this is the guy they picked to replace it. 406, Joey is taking Kevin Coleman, Miami wide receiver. So I've talked about it multiple times in this video, but Miami wide receivers are just a dart throw at this point. They took a lot of rookies this year. They don't have an alpha guy. They don't even have a beta guy. So one of these or 2 of these guys are going to show up as good. So might as well take a dart throw here in the 4th round. 407, Brendan's going to be taking Kendrick Law, Detroit wide receiver. So this is the guy that they drafted to be the 4th. They have now 4 guys that can play multiple different positions. They just drafted Tesla last year, who's going to be more of a he's an athletic freak, but he's going to be more of a red zone target. J-Mo's their burner down the field, and then they have Amon Ra, who is their X and their slot guy. So I don't really know where Law fits in, but he was drafted with pretty high draft capital. 408, Jonas going to be taking Eli Hendrick. Don't know I think it was Kelvin Johnson last year that was taking Pittsburgh, but Hendrick is from the Navy, and he is going to take that number 2 or 3 spot. I don't really know what to do with Pittsburgh running backs, but at this point in the draft, you cannot go wrong with taking a running back in a room with little depth. 409, Kyle's going to be taking Cyrus Allen, Kansas City wide receiver. Mikey loves taking Kansas City wide receivers. He's passing on this one. Why is the reason? Only one person can know, and that's Mike. So don't know where this guy fits in, but if Rashid Rice does not get an extension, which I don't expect him to, especially this year, depending on how he does off the field this year and on the field, then Cyrus could have a shot next year. 410, Freddie's going to be taking Seth McGovern. DJ McGiddens, or whatever his name was taken last year to back up Jonathan Taylor. He ended up doing absolutely nothing. There was another guy from Northwestern that is also in that backfield, but this is another guy that's thrown in that backfield in case Jonathan Taylor gets hurt. Okay, 411, Brendan is going to be taking Brendan Sorsby. So he is not on a team right now at this specific moment when I am doing this video. He might be come July 4th of the draft, but he's a QB with a good arm that has decided to declare for the supplemental draft. He's not on sleeper now, but he should be by the time this draft is taken, and he could move up in the ranks because I think he is a better QB than some of these other QBs that were drafted in this class. 412, Ty is going to be taking Drew Aller, Pittsburgh QB. So something about this QB room is they just took Will Howard last year. They have 4 QBs on the roster, one of them being Aaron Rodgers. The other 3 guys, who knows if they have contracts next year or if they even want them to be starters. So Drew Aller is a rocket arm. That's all we know. Penn State, let's go. Okay, thank you all for being part of this video. Thank you for the views. Like, subscribe, as always. Looking forward to this 8th year. In the last 7-minute video, I made this whole sentimental thing about 10 years ago or 8 years ago. I said, wow, who knows where we'll be at 10 years from now, if this is going to be even going on. As a commissioner, I'm very grateful for how it's happened. We've had 0 turnover, so everyone's been in the league. After last year, everyone has now made the playoffs. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun. Continue. I love doing these videos. I love being the commissioner of this league. I love everyone in this league. thank you guys for being a part of it. Really, it truly means a lot to me. Some of us are almost in our mid-30s. So cheers on. Here's to a great year 8. Hopefully I am the champion, but who knows? Probably won't be. All right. Have a good night, y'all.